only did I get a 45, I also got double action. I only had single action before. That's a big upgrade, is to double action. So that was a big upgrade to double action. Now I'm no longer terrified or scared of. It was an unbelievable. It's unbelievable, how much money I had to spend to get double action. But no longer am I scared of criminals that possess these semi-autos. With the single action, you're scared. You're like, if I had to defend myself, I could. But if somebody's got like one of these semi-auto rifles or semi-auto pistols, like the criminals do and like the police do and all that, you're feeling very unsafe or whatever. Feeling very unsafe. So that's why I said, if I'm higher up than the police when it comes to money and when it comes to my status in the military and all that, I'm going to need a double action revolver. I'm not going to need a single action. And that's when I was able to locate the French Moss military revolvers. These are the revolvers that were issued to the French military. I happen to be a French Canadian. So it happens to be that revolver that I'm supposed to own here in Canada. Justin's a French Canadian and we're men. I'm no longer a child and men have 45s. Well, like I said, the police carry a standard issue 9mm. So as many people are, we're higher up than the police. Like we know that we have nicer cars than the police, nicer houses, bigger businesses, bigger investments. But there is a lot of people that are like that. But we're the ones that pay we're the ones that pay taxes so that the police have their jobs. So if we're those people so we have to get a gun that is equally as powerful to our position in the economy. That's why that many people that are wealthy, they'll get the 45 caliber. It's much bigger and much more powerful than the 9mm. And when it goes to court, say you did have to shoot a police officer and it goes to court, if you got a 45 and you got the money, I'm sure you can handle your defenses. I've had to handle my defenses before, and I'm even more skilled at handling my defenses now. So that's why a lot of I have a friend that has 15 million in Wells Fargo and all that. And they have 45s. So when I joined up sort of business with them, the ones from Wells Fargo and all that, they said, well, you're probably going to need a 45 up there in Canada. They're from the United States. Now, what police officer do you know that has 15 million in their account? They don't make that much money. They make 60,000 a year. They might have a couple 100,000, but maybe $1 million. There is some chiefs that might have millions in their account, but generally they're not going to have 15 million and all that. There are service people. So that's why they carry the 9mm, whereas the wealthier ones like me now, I've just bought my 45. And that's my 45, and I don't carry my 45 yet. I carry my 32. So my 45 just stays at home. It's so big or whatever, if you've seen how big my 45 is. But it's double action. That's a big thing. Criminals were running around. There were ones that even had their licenses that were even police. They went to school for 2 years. and got their police foundations. If you didn't know, it's only 2 years online courses. You can do it online or you can do it in person to become a police officer and carry one of those semi-automatic 9mm that can control and kill and everything like that. It's only 2 years in school. So there's lots of people that never went to school for foundations or whatever, police, but they had rights too, and they have money and all that. But can you believe it that the OPP and the police and all that, they push and they think that they're going to go beyond their duties and that they're going to eliminate wealthier ones. But no, people that aren't police can own firearms too, business owners and all that. That's why I chose to go with the 45, not the 9mm. It'll deter any police from violating the law because now if I have to fire my gun, we'll go to court and that'll be afterwards. Everybody knows courts afterwards. And it comes down to money. And police are doing a job, whereas wealthy people are just living. So that's why they carry a 9mm, where the wealthier ones are recommended to get the 45s. And the 45s will even keep up with the 223. So I remember the government and as well as our families, we spent the tax dollars to get police 223 rifles back about 10 or 15 years ago. It was so don't forget about this. There's people that are going to try to cover it all up. Your money didn't mean nothing. You weren't the one, but I remember it was the citizens that paid all this tax money to equip our police with the 223s. Now the police have had the 223s for about 10 or 15 years, and some of them don't know the history of it, and they're taking advantage of our citizens that don't know the history of it. But that is the history of it. Our citizens, see, some citizens will never become anything now. The police have the 223s, you don't know the history of it, and when they tell you to go to jail for nothing, you're going to jail for nothing. But the wealthier ones that say the police randomly show up, believe it or not, it happens. They'll randomly show up and say you did this or did that, and you didn't even do anything. But what are you going to do if they have the two? Exactly. What I do is here's a 45, and what the cop does is, well, they go and they run away because they know that a 45's, and a lot of people own a lot of people like me, they also have the 223s. They don't just have the 45s. And then when it goes to court, I win or whatever because it was self-defense. But what happens is people, they don't want it to get to the court time. So if you disrespect him or whatever right to his face and you don't have the capability of backing it up, well, you could end up hurt, dead, or beat up. You've heard about people getting beat, raped, all that by the police. So once I figured out, it came down to what gun I own. It was as simple as the gun ownership. Then I said, wow, I'm buying the biggest, most powerful guns that I can own legally. I wish I could own a PAL rated, but I don't. I own antique. And if you didn't know, the RCMP changed the law. If you have antique or grandfathered in, you can have ammunition and use ammunition and reload. You just can't buy ammunition from the store. So that's a discrepancy that a lot of people, we need to get ironed out. Antique firearm owners, the ones that are grandfathered in, they're considered, they just changed the law. If you go on the website of the RCMP, it's considered prohibited, grandfathered in, similar to what a licensee would have for a prohibited one. And they can have ammunition, but they just cannot buy it boxes from the store. Now, how are they going to get their ammunition? Well, it's going to be very, very, very expensive. They're going to be able to buy it from licensed people. They're not going to be able to buy boxes generally unless they're multi-millionaires. If you're a multi-millionaire, you'll be able to afford boxes. But unless you're a multi-millionaire, you generally will not be able to afford boxes of ammunition because to get it grandfathered in, you're going to be paying $10 a round. Whereas somebody with a license, is paying 25 cents a round. So people with a license, they can go to the range, they can shoot their guns 25 cents, boom, 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 have so much fun. But a person that's buying their gun for self-defense under the antique grandfather system or whatever, those are very, very expensive rounds, $10 a round. I can't really go target shooting much. And they say you're not supposed to shoot those antique guns as much, whereas these other ones, you can go range shooting. Or if the criminals get their hands on these ones, which they do, then they can just shoot 25 cents a round. Boom, boom, boom. I know a black gang here in Canada that has their licenses or something like that. And they're in Edmonton, in Toronto, mostly in Edmonton. And they have all these semi-autos and stuff like that, and they're paying 25 cents a round. And there's like white people that have grew up in Canada their whole life that are getting killed by like these black people. That how do these black people even have rights? Well, because they gave the black people rights and then they took over, and there was never a video to show how much they took over. Like, yeah, they have gun rights. They got all they live by a whole different, and guess what? Your children, your husband, your property, and all your future legal ambitions are at jeopardy because of these. So that's why the Canadian government, they've frozen the handguns. But they've also allowed the antiques for people to own antiques that don't have a license, so that we can start to counteract these gangs, these ones that are holding on to all the handguns. The ones that are holding on, they have more than just handguns. It's our innocent people like me that just has the one handgun or whatever. These guys got so many handguns or whatever, it's unbelievable. They'll come right in your house. I witnessed a rape. I don't know how many years ago. It was unbelievable. When I seen the behavior, I thought this behavior was illegal and that maybe you've seen it on the TV and all that. But no, it's a behavior even our service people are proud of, that are scared of. And when I seen that, yeah, even our service people and all that are hanging out with this guy or proud of this guy, or it doesn't matter what, but he has some relationship with that guy, and they can get corrupted. And then that's scary for our society. And I always lived by the society. So we always heard grandmothers and women, they can carry the pepper spray. Some of them even have a revolver and all that. So we've been getting that figured out here in Canada. As it's been a gray area since 1979. They brought in the licenses, but then there was a detrimental gray area when it came to our society for ones that maybe got left out of getting a license. Like I remember back in 2013, it must have been the year of 2013. I had the ability to go get my license under law. I had no outstanding charges or whatever. So I wanted to get my PAL license. But because of unfair criminality, now I'm having a hard time to get my license or whatever. Because of the unfair criminality of the police, of the mafiosos, and of the gangs. But then our federal government, the RCMP and all that, they said, we recognize that some people have been unfairly. That's what happened to me. I got unfairly. They did the fake charges and all that, so I couldn't get my PAL. They were jealous that I had all these rights. And they said, hit him, so he can't get any rights. So some guy ran up to me one day in Teeswater. His name was Phil Thompson. And I wasn't even on his property. Some guy, I was down over by the store, actually on my property. I was on my property under law. My rental property. The property in which I was renting. Next thing you know, this guy runs up on my rental property and he starts choking me. So I pull out pepper spray and I pepper spray. He did it all on purpose to try to ruin my. But guess what? The RCMP said, we're not stupid. And we also have antique firearms with the paperwork. They don't have to have this PAL license. You're not going to ruin the integrity of our everyday citizens because they got taken advantage of or something like that and didn't be able to get the PAL. They said it's a whole different system. They said PAL holders, they're supposed to be way more responsible. They got the semi-automatic rifles. They got the big time shotguns. And they said, and they can have all the brand new. They get the 25-cent a round ammo. They have all these privileges. They have these trading systems and all that. And then they said, okay, well, there is really real people that need the antiques. So then they have the whole system with the antique. But I lived in Canada for a long time, and I was sort of, what was it, confused or just completely, oh, there's so many people, not just me. Now I'm fully educated with the antiques. But a lot of people aren't. So what the education with the antiques is, you do not need a license to purchase one. But do they have stores full of them? Hardly no. They don't. Not like they're a very, very rare gun. They cost $2,000, $5,000, $3,000. If you can find one that's even in a good condition. Who can find these guns in a good condition? Only reputable, legal, reputable people that have significant money. Like I was able to find a double action now for $2,000. $2,000, that's a lot of money. My rent only costs $600. It costs 4 times the amount that I had. 4 months rent is how much I had to spend to get my firearm. 4 months rent. Now I could have even went to Wendy's or McDonald's and I could have prepaid my rent for 4 months. But I had to get this double action 45 firearm. But that's how much you have to pay in Canada if you want a firearm without a license. And it's only going to be a revolver, double action. And if you can't afford that, it's going to be a single action. If you can't afford that, I don't know what it's going to be. Okay. It costs a lot of gold. For 1 ounce of gold, it costs like $1,200 or so. So for my revolver, I had to spend almost 2 ounces of gold. 2 ounces of gold. I wanted to buy a bracelet, a gold bracelet. But I said I need this firearm. So 2 ounces of gold, and if you know about gold and you know about the economy and all that, that's a significant amount of gold. But it's worth it up here in Canada because I used to live down in the United States and I said, I'll pay the premium price to live up. They said you can live down in the US, but your gun prices are cheaper, but you're not going to have your Canada benefits and all that. I said, oh, well, for me, I'd rather go back to Canada and pay the big, big money for my firearm to be able to have it, but to be able to live where I'm from in my open home native land and all that. Because it was so overpopulated down in the US. Like there were so many pros and cons. It was like, sure, you can live down in the US and all that, and I had a lot of friends down there. But then you can have your semi-auto this and you can have Glocks and all that. but there's so much population. I said I'd rather go to Canada and rather have a double action because there's not much population. It feels like I really own it here in Canada. Like I was born here in Canada, and we feel like we own Canada. It was never infiltrated really by the Mexicans and the Africans. In the US, I noticed they got infiltrated by the Mexicans and the Africans and the Haitians and all that. When I said that down there, it wasn't a good look or whatever. So I said, I got to go back to Canada. My dad stayed, but it's to me, it was unsafe. We lived in Linden, Tennessee. I always thought it was funny. We lived in Linden, Tennessee, and they used to say, oh, that's all the way in Memphis. And then you look at the map and you say, Memphis is only about 50 miles. And then because where I came from, we didn't have a Memphis. It was Canada. And then all the way down there across the border, was Memphis. And how we see Memphis was, why don't they send them all back to Africa? They're not supposed to be in the United States doing all this Memphis gang war. And that was always my position. And I thought that was the government's position with the FBI but it isn't. The government's position is that's the GD gang down in Memphis. They have rights just like Video Corner in Linden and once I started to see that, I was like, oh, I'm changing my whole position. Like, no, they see the neighborhood gangs, they equip them. It's the government in the United States that's equipping the gangs with the guns. Barack Obama, and all that. He was the one equipping the gangs with the guns. So no, when I moved in, we brought a lot of money down to the United States, but that's not the government's position. The government loves these guys. They got stacks of money. The white people are with them. It's a big mafioso. They love their music. They equip them with guns. They give them their whole own cities. They're considered military officers. When the white people down in the United States need them in the street, they hire them. They are the United States' hitmen. And when I seen there were so many hitmen down in the U.S. and all that, I said, it's not my cup of tea. It's not my place. And that's what they said. They were nice enough, believe it or not. Even the ones from Memphis were nice enough. They said, you know what? We're kind-hearted so much right now that we'll let you hop on a plane, get out of U.S., go back to Canada, because they have the embassies. So when they contacted the embassy, they said, okay, we feel him. We say he's not from Memphis. And he's not even from Linden. And he's not from Memphis. He's not from the U.S. He ain't from any part of the U.S., is what they said. And they said, Tom, you got to go back to Canada. And I've been so happy ever since, because I thought Canadians and Americans were very similar, and we are when it comes to our likeness of the dollar. But the U.S. is much more ruthless when it comes to their dollar, where the Canadians are much more considerate. Canadians give up their dollar. That's why our dollar is worth less than theirs. We tend to give up our dollar more often, meaning like when they tell us to do something, we do it. We do it. We do it. When they say, hey, Canada, give up this, we give it up more often. And when they tell the Americans to give it up, they go to war. They don't give it up. But that's why their dollar is worth more. But at the same time, that's why they're dealing with the real bloodshed. So we're in a certain position where we're protected by them. We work as their, but then we don't have as much war as them and all that. It's hard to explain the position. We're in a good position. Canada's in a really great position. We're military. our military works with their military. We're almost like we're Canada and that's the U.S. And then you got the other ones and all that. But I just didn't like living in the U.S. I liked visiting um, Disneyland and all that. I went to Universal Studios. I went there 5 or 10 times. But then when you settle down and you get home invaded, or I got home invaded by one of their by Justin Backdorf, who is who's in the U.S. military. He kicked my door right in, like we were in Afghanistan. It happens in Afghanistan, but it happens more in the U.S. because I've actually been to the U.S. And in the U.S. they act like Afghanistan, but then when they get to Afghanistan, they get scared or whatever. But when I was down in Florida, we owned a home. My mom bought a house down in Florida. Next thing you know, my doors got kicked in by kids that were not real military. They were just kids in middle school that knew they were going to be military. So you got to watch that. It's not anything under law. It's like there's a lot of racism even with these guys. It's like that guy's an American citizen born here in America, and believe it or not, that's a Canadian citizen. Who gets privileges? Well, the American citizen can boot your door in, steal your Xbox, hold you at gunpoint, and get away with it because you're a Canadian. They take advantage of you. Shit happens, eh? It's the army. Well, until you buy a gun and wipe that guy off the earth or whatever, right? So that's the whole ideology with it. And then you feel bad. You're like, well, I was originally a Canadian citizen, but then we got our citizenship legally. So then it's like, well, am I supposed to shoot my fellow brother for home invading me? Well, yeah, you are supposed to under U.S. law. Or you're supposed to call the police. But like I said, the police have favoritisms and all that. So it's a big racist brigade. So and that's the big joke of it. They have this, it's all a big joke. All the criminals, they have this joke. It's like this, POW MIA, come down the United States. It doesn't matter if you're Canadian. I'm surprised Justin Trudeau returned. Because most people that go down to the U.S., they end up POW MIA. It means like you're going to follow their rules. You're going to live here. They tried to do it to me. They said, you're not even getting your disability entitlement, nothing. You're going to live down the U.S. and be like this slave. I said, what the fuck? I said, I have disability entitlement in Canada. I have to return. That's when we had to get in contact with the Canadian embassy up in Quebec. And they had to threaten military action if they did not let me return to Canada. That's what happened back in 2008. The U.S. was threatening to, for no reason, not let me return back to my home country. They were trying to make me like this second-class citizen down in the U.S. So you got to watch out for that. They tricked my dad, said, oh, you got a good job down here with a visa, the United States visa program. When we went down there, I didn't really have a visa. They lied. So they scammed us. So be very careful of the family visa. I never got my family visa when I went down to the U.S. My brother didn't. And it was all a big scam. And then I had to use my Canadian passport and all that to return back to Canada, where I had all my legal rights. They tried to treat me like I was one of these Mexicans. Yeah, Canadian. They don't realize how rich the Canadians are. They think we're nothing but some Haitians, because that's how they treated me, like I was like this Jamaican guy. They treated me like I was a Mexican. But no, I was a Canadian that got scammed by their federal government to go down when I was a child. I wasn't even over 18. I was under 18. I was like maybe 8 or 9 years old. Our family got scammed back when it was George W. Bush. And then they did this big recession, and they foreclosed on everyone. And then and then they brought in Obama and gave all the black people guns, and they enslaved everybody in the US. And there were all these gang warfares from Memphis to Chicago to New York City. All these rappers and all this gang and all these buildings that were falling down and all these riots and all these. And then there was that Obama, and it's these guys right here that are doing it. The Obama. And then it's all these gay ass Americans that are sucking Obama's penis. Like, and they think that face is something to, and they go to war for him and they die in Afghanistan. And they think they're going to infiltrate Canada, and they won't, because they'll die worse than Afghanistan. Where are they going to infiltrate next? Well, they'll probably have to end up going back to Afghanistan to eat on the same goddamn, because I know they will never, ever be able to ruin the integrity of Canada. We have the Canadian Armed Forces. When I was down in the US, it was one of their biggest threats was to go to war with Canada. That's my testimony. I'll right hand on the Bible. I know real US Marines and real US military, and that was their big goal after Iraq. I was down there during Desert Storm. And one of their biggest things they said was they want to go to war with Canada again. We had the War of 1812, and they're extremely mad about the outcome if you go do your history of that War of 1812. So it's a real national security threat for Canadians and Americans alike. Canadians are Americans, and Americans are Americans too. We all live in the continent of North America. Canadians are Americans just like the United States Americans are. We just have the country of Canada, and then there's the country of the United States. But there's a lot of discrepancy in between. You had that Civil War, and a lot of the ones that I heard say it were ones that were in favor big time of this Civil War down in the South. They're the ones that threaten the Canadians and threaten the northern states. But here's the thing. You say, Tom, those guys are just imbecile hillbillies, right? Well, no, they're not just imbecile hillbillies. Some of them are real U.S. Army. Some of them are real U.S. Marines that have been really equipped with firearms and are really putting people's lives in danger, or are really stirring up the economy, or are causing war and all that. But that's always been Canada's position. We're not ones that cause the war. We try to de-escalate. Anybody that's saying that they want to go to war with Canada, that Canada's next or something like that, that is completely false. And I was always the one to say that military officers that talked outside of their own capacity, they would be dishonorably discharged from the U.S. Army. That being a man like Justin Batdorf of Cape Coral, Florida, Matthew Earls of Cape Coral, Florida. They both should be dishonorably discharged. So that's my call for dishonorable discharge for both Justin Batdorf, who did home invasion robberies to get to the position of being a U.S. military officer. He didn't do it honorably. He did it dishonorably. That is my call. He's even admitted it that he would do home invasions down in the city of Cape Coral, Florida to buy his equipment or to get into the position. That would be what we would consider a dishonorable enlistment. He made his enlistment dishonorable. His parents didn't pay for it. They robbed people under law. They did the criminal act of robbery to obtain their enlistment. So that would be qualifications to get him dishonorably discharged. He's much like one of the ones that want to go to war and all that. Well, they've seen what happened in Afghanistan. They just lost 12 people. And then, not to mention the building that never got mentioned in Miami. But it happens even in the United States on the homeland. You know what it comes down to? Minding your own business. Don't break into your neighbor's house because they're a Canadian and you're an American. You don't have rights to break into their house and all that type of shit is what goes on. Like, just because you were born in Florida and somebody else was born in New York and they saved up their money to move to Florida doesn't mean you have any other rights, native rights. Or that's like some weirdo native, like Indian kind of stuff. The whole thing that if you're talking July 4th and you're talking the whole Christopher Columbus, they don't do that anymore. It's supposed to be if that person's a legal owner and all that, that person's a legal owner and all that. So that could be a thing to stop that. All your gang territories. Even the white people and the mafias down in the United States have their little gang territories. And the bikers, look. And the Obamas. They have all their territories. Oh, you could get shot over there. Oh, you could get Canadians can't even fathom this. I mean, if you talk to the Toronto people and all that, they want to be you so bad or whatever, they try to emulate it. They want to be like LA so bad, Toronto does, that they have some people, yeah, that say like, oh, Jane and Finch is this certain gang, and but in real life, that's not real. But it's stupid shit that makes it like that. But my videos try to eliminate that, make it like this joke, like there's no such thing as a powerful gang, and if there is, they are taken to jail or they're eliminated. There will be no such thing. If you want to see powerful gangs, you play Grand Theft Auto online, and that's it. Not in our real life, there isn't. You know? And that's my position. And if that's not your position, then just stay out of it and go play a game or something, because when it comes to the law stands because it gets in the way of business. We wouldn't have all these wonderful things that we have if it was out of control. Like Amazon, everything's nice and under control. It's supposed to be nice and under control with the FBI and all that. But what does the FBI do? They investigate. What do? I'm an undercover agent that can offer testimony. No longer do they need to investigate for certain people because I have quite a lot of testimony to offer for their investigations. But it's the FBI's job to stay out of Donald Trump's house and actually do their job with the terrorism, all the real stuff. Right? And with my testimony, we can do that. They got this guy, I'm not going to mention his name. They got quite a few guys, and there's only a few left. When you say, what about your buddy Matthew Earls? What did he do? You mentioned that Justin did home invasions, and you can testify on that. I witnessed Matthew Earls raping and mutilating little girls when I went to his house. So that's testimony. I would have to legally, under law, testify that I witnessed him and that they were babysitting and that I witnessed him murder who he was supposed to be babysitting. And then that's when I was just a kid. But yeah, he's became a U.S. Marine, and they killed their baby. They killed babies. I witnessed them kill two kids down in Cape Coral, Florida, and they ran me all the way up to Canada because he happened to be part of this big mafia family. The Italian mafia, a lot of them became FBI. Not all of them, because I'm not like that. I may be Italian, but he is in no way is he a mafia. I always wished I was mafia because mafias they have these large families or whatever. But your families can't always protect you, and nor can your fake military repertoire. If you violate the law, justice, there will come justice. And that's why I always never violated the law. I mean, I've had to go to jail and but I've never violated the law to the extent because I know that there's always to be justice. And justice, if you violate the law, the justice is not something that you necessarily want to endure. Justice is it's a good thing that people get when somebody's done something wrong to them or their family, but it's also something that somebody that when they receive the power of justice against them, when it's ruled against them, you do not want to feel the power of the justice. It's got two sides to it. And the justice is very biblical. I note that. But there's way more justice to be put out because I've seen very little justice since I've been alive. So it comes down to like investments. Every day I have money and all that because I get entitlement. That's a big thing. I remember when I was a kid to get your disability entitlement. It's huge, huge. So I'm like that super powerful guy you heard about that got his disability. Because when I was a kid, you used to dream and dream and dream to be able to get this disability that the older guys got. Now I'm the older guy with the disability. And then when I'm sitting down and I'm spending my money, like I said, I've seen very little justice in my life. So when you have extra money, it's like, okay, you're going to get into stocks and options, right? Because that's a legal right. Anybody can get into stocks and options. Well, you're obviously not going to invest into the police, right? Because you haven't seen very much justice. So it comes down to that. Donald Trump, he got robbed. He spent all this money on the police. He loves the police. Here's the police here, here's the police there. Now, guess who is robbing him at Mar-a-Lago every day with their home invasions and the police? Funny, because he funded it on himself. It's all a big robbery. He went and seen them. He gave them all this money. Here's all this money, and now he's dealing with the FBI. And you can see the power. You can see the draining power of the FBI right in front of our eyes. Is Donald going to give them more money? Is Donald going to give them more money? Because if he does, then he's a dead man. But if he, you know what I mean? But if he doesn't give them any more money, they're going to lose their power and they're going to leave his house. Donald accidentally gave the police way too much power. the on everybody. I mean, look at the Breonna Taylor. There wasn't anything a girl could have did that would have justified a police officer to kick her door in and shoot her to death. There couldn't have been anything other than like a mass shooting or a homicide or a group of homicides or something like that. If she was just hiding in her thing for like a little warrant or something like that, then your whole system's messed up. Where you can just go in and shoot and kill Breonna Taylor and all that, shoot and kill Breonna Taylor and all that, and all that. That's one of our citizens. She might end up becoming a nurse one day. But here's the thing. The people in our high positions, they don't even know what position they're in. So I noticed that a long time ago that there was a lot of these new rookies that they're bringing in. So you got to stay out of the rookies' ways because they are hungry rookies. They want to prove it on anybody that gets in their way. So when they bring in a fresh group of rookies, you got to really watch out because they're trying to make a name for themselves. They're trying to have all these achievements and all that. So what do you do when there's a superhero? They just got all these superhero rookies. Well, you better get out of the way of the superhero rookies, or else they're going to smash you down when it comes to military, when it comes to police, and when it even comes to the politics. That's who Justin was. He was a rookie. Same with me. But it's politicians like us who just have the French revolver versus these military families that have these rifles and shit. And then the military families are getting like more Mexicans and all that to get more guns to build their military.